Good morning. Bonjour. If I could ask members of the committee to take their seats, if you haven't already. We do have quorum, so one can only use last night's gold medal figure skating final as an excuse for so long. Let's get this meeting started. Welcome to the Environment and Climate Protection Committee meeting of Tuesday the 20th of February 2018. We'll go through the consent agenda first. Any declarations of interest? Seeing none, confirmation of minutes. Those received? Received. Yes. Minutes are received. Status update, committee inquiries and motions for the period ending 13th of February 2018. Those received? Received. Commemorative naming proposal, Wendy Stewart Pond, that the Environment and Climate Protection Committee recommend Council approve the proposal to name the Sawmill Creek Settling Pond as Wendy Stewart Pond. Does anyone wish to speak to that item, or is that received? Carried? Carried. And the third item, financial plan for water services 2018 pursuant to Ontario Regulation 45307. I have asked for a very brief staff presentation on this one.
Did you let her know?
I did, but it was a week ago. Yeah. That wasn't a total surprise, was it? No. All right, please go ahead.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm here to present the Water Services Financial Plan. This is something that was started in 2009. The Ontario provincial government set up a regulation requiring financial plans to be submitted as part of license renewals. In 2009, we moved to an accrual accounting basis of accounting, and so as part of that financial plan, needed to be presented in accrual format. So basically, what we've taken is the long-range financial plan that's already been approved. It already has a 10-year horizon that was approved in September last year, and converted that into an accrual basis. So the overview of the plan, it meets the requirements under Regulation 45307 for municipal drinking water license renewals. It shows a healthy financial position for water infrastructure over 10-year horizon. And as I mentioned, the 10-year horizon, we've matched it to the long-range financial plan. It shows adequate resources are being provided to continue successful operation over time. It generates annual operating surpluses, allowing for investment in infrastructure. And when you go through here and you see these surpluses are based on an accounting or accrual basis. It's not similar to the budgeting process. In budgets, we include contribution to capital. In these ones, it shows revenues, expenditures, and it shows what's available for investment in infrastructure. And then it demonstrates a positive cash flow and acceptable debt service cost. So, as I mentioned, Regulation 45307 requires municipalities to submit a council-approved financial plan for their drinking water systems in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Projections included in the required financial statements will provide a snapshot of the drinking water system's projected financial situation, as well as the resources required to run and sustain the system. So it provides a holistic view, not just expenditures and revenues. It shows accumulated surplus, cash balances, and tangible capital assets. So it provides a holistic picture to make sure that those water services are financially sustainable. The first financial plan was submitted in June 2010, so that's when the regulation changed, which covered the 2010 to 2019 period. The current drinking water license expires on June 16th, 2019, so a renewal application must be submitted prior to December 15th, 2018. This report also has a dual purpose because we also needed a financial plan as part of the application for a new municipal drinking water system that's expected to be serving a subdivision of the community of Richmond by the end of 2018. So the financial plan requirements, it has to cover at minimum 6 years projections, and we just completed a long-range financial plan that covers 10, so that was perfect for us. It's based on PSAB accounting, so full accrual basis, and we need to provide 4 statements: financial position, financial operations, cash flow, and tangible asset continuity. So in terms of what's included in the plan, the Long Range Financial Plan 5 that was approved by Council in September 2017 is the basis for this plan. The same information that would have been in the LRFP in terms of infrastructure needs over 10 years, water sales and other revenues are also captured in that Long Range Financial Plan. The cash needed to meet operating and capital requirements, and then the debt financing and debt servicing. What's new with this is we've included net book value of existing drinking water assets as of January 2018 and projected value over those 10 years. So the first statement is a statement of financial position. It shows the assets and liabilities over the water program. It includes cash assets, fixed assets, which are tangible capital assets. Shows the value of the assets that are in excess of our net debt, and debt as a percentage of net book value remains at 12 to 13%. It also shows the accumulated surplus increases over time as city invests in the infrastructure. So the accumulated surplus increases from 1.98 billion to 2.83 billion. The next statement is the statement of operations. It shows a surplus or deficit from operations in the accounting period that is contributed to capital investment in infrastructure. Debt servicing only includes the interest portion. Amortization of capital assets is recognized as an expenditure. So these are all the things that are different from the budgeting process that we have to show from in an accrual basis. The annual infrastructure needs exceed the projected annual amortization expense, and that's because the amortization expense really shows an amortization of the infrastructure costs from a historical cost perspective. We purchase an asset, we amortize it over a period of time, but when we actually invest in infrastructure, it's actually at a higher cost. We renew at a higher cost. So your amortization expense doesn't exactly reflect what you're actually investing in infrastructure. You're actually investing more. Surplus increases from the 89.8 million in 2018 to 94.8 million in 2027. So we show surpluses, and as I mentioned, that's the additional money that then goes into contributed capital for investment in infrastructure. Statement of cash flow shows how cash position changes from one year to the next. The cash balances remain positive over the 10-year projection period, and it decreases slightly over time due to some planned large projects during the projection period. So an example was the water treatment plant expansion. TCA continuity. So this report shows the changes in the value of tangible capital assets over time. It describes the value of the physical assets and reflects the changes due to disposal, creation, and amortization. The asset values increase from 2.1 billion in 2018 to 3.1 billion in 2027. And just to mention, tangible capital assets include cities' investments, but also contributed capital. So assets that have been put in place by developers is also included in the balance. So in conclusion, the financial plan for water services shows a healthy financial position for water infrastructure over a 10-year horizon. It shows adequate resources are being provided to continue successful operation over time. It generates annual operating surpluses, allowing for investment in infrastructure, and it demonstrates positive cash balances and acceptable debt service costs within the 15% limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm aware already of Councillors Cloutier, Brockington, and Shirelli who have questions. Okay. Go ahead, Cloutier. Yeah.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président, and thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. We have to do the application on December 15th. Is that correct?
That's when it's due, but we're doing it sooner than that.
Earlier than
Yes.
that. So it will be incorporated in the budget documents that will be approved by the 2019 council?
This actually, it reflects the already approved long-range financial plan.
Okay.
Yes.
And that long-range financial plan is the 6% increases per year that were approved? Is that correct?
This only includes the long-range financial plan, the portion that related to water services.
Yes.
And there were 4% increases in the first few years, and then it went down to 2% increases.
Okay.
So it's just the water services line of the long-range financial plan.
And the application will incorporate that previous direction or policy by council?
Correct. So the financial plan reflects those approved increases.
Okay.
Just to elaborate, those increases get approved each year as part of the budget. These are just projected and planned.
They do, but
yeah, it still gets approved as part of the ongoing budget every year.
A long-range policy of increases in water rates.
Yes, but every year we still approve it as part of the budgeting process.
Has the new billing structure, fixed costs versus variable costs for consumption, is incorporated, and the projected revenues is of course incorporated in these documents?
Correct, and they are conservative estimates.
How will council or this committee or FEDCO, whichever committee, be made aware of the application of the, when you do the application, how do we get it when it's done?
I'll ask Tammy Rose to answer that question.
Mr. Chair, the municipal drinking water license is a program that began in 2010. So in 2010, the City of Ottawa received licenses for all of its municipal drinking water systems. And we've gone through one renewal, which was 2014, and our next renewal is due in 2019. And typically, we provide the application and the information that's requested by the ministry, and then we get our renewal licenses sent back to us through the clerk and myself.
And how is council made aware of that? How does that happen?
So every year, council receives summary reports around and also drinking water quality management system reports. And those reports, we're required to provide compliance information. And all of our license, so basically our license and our works permit include all of the elements that we need to comply with. And through those reports, you're provided with what those compliance requirements are and how the City of Ottawa is doing with that.
And as part of those reports, we will be made aware that the license has been reissued or approved?
Yes, we make a commentary to confirm that we have valid municipal drinking water licenses, yes.
And again, is that at this committee? Is it at FEDCO?
Typically, we come to Environment Committee and...
Environment Committee
yes.
will be. When do you expect us to get that?
So the summary reports are compliance reports. We're required by legislation to have that circulated to council by March 31st every year. So we expect not to have any delays associated with that. And our drinking water quality management system report is due to go on the legislative agenda for June.
Okay. And as part of that, do we expect the license to have been renewed by then?
Our application deadline is December 15th of 2018, so...
but the Deputy Treasurer said we're applying ahead of time.
Yes, so there's two things. So there's the financial plan is required for the renewal of our existing license, and we're applying for a brand new license for a new municipal drinking water system. And so that application process is being developed with the developer and will be submitted to the ministry. I don't have the timelines, but we can work with our stakeholders in planning to give you more information.
Okay. I'm sure the number is in the budget documents. Can you refresh my memory as to the reserves for the water, specifically the rate-supported water infrastructure, or can you provide?
Yeah, it's just below 40 million.
Just below 40 million.
Now, when you look at it on an accrual basis, you'll see the cash and cash equivalents are much higher. So it includes all unspent capital also. So when you see the reserves, it's all committed capital. And so you see the pure reserve, but on an accrual basis, you see the cash in the bank, basically, on an accrual basis.
Can you go to slide 7? You use accumulated surplus increases over time as city invests in infrastructure from 1.98 billion to 2.83 billion. Can you go to slide 8? you're using surplus increases from 89 million to 94 million. One of those is capital, one of those is yearly operating. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, the previous, that's on an annual basis. So the annual surplus is 89.8. That then gets added to your accumulated surplus every year. So the accumulated surplus is over multiple years.
Okay. And when you're saying accumulated surplus, you're not referring to reserves?
No.
No.
No, accumulated surplus includes investment in assets. So all the tangible capital assets are also included in that number. It's our net equity, basically.
Yeah, and I understand that, but it just seems you're using the same term in a bit of different context. So I just wanted to. So on an annual basis, we provide services for water and the infrastructure, and people pay their bills. We expect to have an annual surplus of 89 million, and that is invested into infrastructure, renewable, tangible assets and infrastructure that will serve this city for years and years and years.
Correct.
Okay. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff for the presentation this morning. In addition to the financial plan, what other reports are municipalities required to provide the ministry regarding the drinking water system?
So by regulation, we're required to provide annual water quality results, and those are posted on the city's website by the end of the month of February each year. So anyone external to the city could go on the city's Ottawa's website and get up-to-date or up to last year's water quality information. There's the summary report that I mentioned earlier, which is basically a review of all of our compliance requirements under the various regulations of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And basically we provide confirmation that we've met the compliance requirements. And if we have not met those compliance requirements, we're required to explain why and what corrective actions have been taken as a result. And we also have annually the Drinking Water Quality Management System Review Report. And that's a comprehensive report that's under our management system. So there's about 21 elements that we review every year. And basically we provide an update of how well that management system is going.
Excellent, thank you. With respect to the financial plan that we're about to submit, what exactly does the ministry do with this report?
So it's not an approval process as part of the application of the license. So basically it goes to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and is just a plan to demonstrate that the city has done its financial analysis over the 6-year life cycle that they require. So, but there's no approval process that the ministry does with that information.
It's just a requirement to do the plan, which we do, okay. Do these plans, though, give an accurate picture of the water system across the province? If you were to look at data aggregately, can you get a fairly good understanding of the state of the system in Ontario? I would suspect these are the plans where you would draw that information from. All the other plans you listed really doesn't give details of the health of the systems. It would seem the financial plan is who is accurately getting a good understanding of the state of the water system in Ontario. It would be the ministry, and I want to know, other than receiving it, who's looking into these numbers, who's looking at the data to assess whether or not the systems are safe, the water is safe, and that municipalities have a true financial plan, over the next 10 years to make sure they're on the right track. If we weren't on the right track, would we be getting information back or feedback back from the ministry? Say we just submit it, but there's not a lot of dialogue, I'm getting a sense, and I want to make sure there is that assessment going on, at least at the provincial level. It seems that we're on strong footing in Ottawa, but how can we know that in this province the system is healthy?
I think the ministry certainly has different mechanisms that they use, and I think there's, in terms of compliance and inspections and operations and maintenance, there's a whole ministry inspection protocol. So every year the ministry will inspect, and it's a 20+ criteria that they review. Some years are more in depth than others, and those report cards are posted on the ministry's website. They have a chief drinking water inspector, and annually they provide a report card on the operations and maintenance and overall health of the Ontario municipal drinking water systems. And regarding the financial plans, they are also looking at the individual councils that are responsible for those municipalities or for those systems have done their due diligence in developing those plans. So I think that they leave it up to the councils to determine that they've made the best decisions possible for their systems. And there's also, on the infrastructure side, there's asset management regulations that are also coming online. So again, the ministry is very much wanting to make sure that the municipalities are reinvesting and renewing the infrastructure.
Thank you. My final question is just regarding, and maybe this is not germane to the recommendation before us, but it's a quick question. That's insurance coverage for our assets. I assume we have insurance for our assets. Can you confirm that?
There's somebody from clerk's office.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the city has a insurance program to cover various municipal assets, including the drinking water system.
So what type of failure in the infrastructure would trigger the city to file an insurance claim? We have had numerous water main breaks in a very specific neighborhood of my ward. These are small in the grand scheme of things when you look at the total cost of the assets. It would seem perhaps unreasonable to file insurance claims for very small breaches like this. But what would trigger the city to say, you know what, these are adding up, or there's a significant breach in our infrastructure to file a claim? When does the city consider filing claims versus no, this is just too small? What's the trigger?
There's a minimum deductible amount. I believe it's $3 million.
Mr. Chair, each specific incident would have to be monitored from a number of perspectives, including whether or not there's a limitation issue that would be in play, whether any contractor or third party could be held responsible for any failure of municipal infrastructure, and those considerations would be examined on a case-by-case basis within the context of the overall system.
That's very helpful, thank you. I only ask because in one very specific neighborhood, we've had 7 breaches in 6 weeks. It's not the same pipe, but it's within the very specific area affecting the same residents, so I only ask that. But $3 million would seem like a reasonable minimum level before the city would file some sort of claim on a system that's worth so much, but I just wanted to ask. As far as the financial plan goes, though, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the information that we have before us. I do think the city's plan is sound, and there certainly is a plan going forward that this committee has wrestled with on more than one occasion and developed a plan, and I'm certainly going to be supporting what we have before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the statement of financial position, as part of the application, we're not bound by the statements made in this application, right? We don't have to do what we say we're going to do.
These are projections.
Right. Okay, so if we choose not to follow this at any point during the course of the time period, are there any consequences at all? Or better, first question is, do we have to report that change?
We have to update it with each license. I don't know, how often do we renew? Every 5 years. So we would be updating it 5 years later to reflect the new projection and the changes in the plan. They want to make sure that we have a plan in place at a minimum. And of course, annually we make decisions as part of the budgeting process to approve what we're going to do for that year. And changes do occur. But as part of the budgeting process, we also make sure that it's financially sustainable.
Okay, so if we were to change, say, the water rate structure again, there would be no consequence to this. Is that right?
It would be reflected in the next financial plan.
But
there's no immediate requirement to show that change.
Then in your characterization of the net book value of our assets, there's also not really any implication to that either, is there? Because we're not going to be selling our water mains. Okay.
No, we're not selling our water mains.
Good. All right. So essentially, you submit this. They just want to see you have a plan. You don't necessarily have to follow it. And council can change its direction. Then you just have to tell them again that we changed direction. Is that right?
You have to report every 5 years any changes in that plan.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? No. Seeing none, thank you very much. We continue to receive, I don't know if perfect marks is an exaggeration, but absolutely top marks for our water system. I believe our citizens should expect no less, particularly from something as basic as water. There's nothing more basic than water, and we are all very aware in the post-Walkerton environment that we are all personally liable for the safety of our water supply. So all the more reason to have a good financial plan and one that's maintaining our assets and seems to be on course for to be both financially sound to allow us to maintain physically sound water assets. So thank you very much for presenting this plan. Is this received then? Or, yeah. Received? Approved. Approved. Thank you. Searching for that word. Carried. Received, approved, and carried. Thank you. We have no in-camera items. Information previously distributed. Source protection status update. Is that received? And I have not seen notices of motions or inquiries. Are there any, Councillor Lieber? Yeah.
Thanks. I do have one inquiry, Chair. There have been a considerable number of media stories in recent weeks describing the impact across the country of China's ban and restriction on the import of many types of recycled paper and plastics. Has the ability to market materials, excuse me, currently collected through the black box and blue box recycling program been negatively impacted by the significant change in the international market, and what are the medium run and longer term implications for marketing Ottawa's recycled materials and on the price received for them?
Thank you. All right, any other inquiries? No, seeing none. Other business? Seeing none. Adjournment. Thank you. Next meeting Tuesday the 20th of March.